Rock on. Or rather, rock in. There. Welcome to the Daily Tank, the channel where you can watch the daily development of this nano tank. I began the setup of this tank last week, which you can watch by clicking on that video link up there. Go on, I dare you. Throughout the week, I've been dosing the tank daily with C-Chem Stability. I wanted to find out if stability really does what it says on the tin. Would I safely be able to add a fish within a week? To check up on that, I've been using JBL's Aquatest Easy Dip Strips. JBL Aquatest Easy Dip Strips is not easy to say. I've also been using API's liquid ammonia test. Kind of to my surprise, everything's been testing really well. Apart from one thing, and I didn't really expect this thing to be an issue, but pH has been a bit of an issue. Here's a glass of lovely, refreshing, clean tap water. This is the stuff I've been filling my aquarium with, after it's been dechlorinated, of course. Round my neck of the woods, the tap water is really hard. So hard, in fact, that it spends most of its time asking me for a fight in the car park. When we use one of the dip strips to test it, you can see the pH comes out at 8. But the water from my tank has been testing at 6.4, and I suspect it might even be lower than that, it's just the test only goes down to 6.4. I want to keep a better fish in my tank, and it's going to be happiest with a pH of around 7, so I need to do something about this. Now I reckon one of the main culprits for causing my pH to take a nosedive has got to be my choice of planting substrate, this aquasoil from Aquasolum. I know this stuff does cause pH to lower, but I chose it because I thought it would be good for my plants, and as I was starting out with a relatively high tap water pH, I thought I'd be alright. For the size of the tank, I suppose I've also got a pretty hefty piece of driftwood type stuff in there too, and that will also act to lower the pH. That's where these rocks come in. Following the advice of my local fish shop, I'm going to add some of this ocean rock to hopefully help to raise the pH. I pretty much drained the tank, and I'm also going to take the opportunity to add a new plant. It's going in the back in between my Amazon sword and the microsorium to help it all look a bit thicker. I'm going to tuck some rocks away behind the driftwood. I've got a kind of a naturalistic riverbed type setting going on, but I don't want too many of these rocks on show. Some are going at the front though. I think the bright white colour might add a bit of a nice contrast. I'm trying not to think too hard about how I place them. I want them to look like they're just there, at the bottom of a river, all nice and natural. But of course that's easier said than done. I was clumsy and managed to partially snap off one of the leaves of my Amazon sword plant, so I'm removing it completely. Also, sadly, I'm having to trim up my favourite plant in this aquarium, the little lily. It seems to be succumbing to a bit of melt. I'm hoping if I remove the worst affected leaves I might be able to save it, but looking at this picture I don't know whether it's melt or something a bit more sinister going on. I'll just have to wait and see. Cleaning up round the top of the tank, and also some of my floating salvinia plant has become trapped in some of the nooks and crannies, so I'm just using my tweezers to help it find its way back up to the surface. You might have noticed some of these strangely coloured blobs at the bottom of the tank here. It's just fish food. I've been treating the tank daily with C-Chem Stability, and during that first weekly dosage period, you're supposed to add a fish. The fish will produce ammonia, which the good bacteria will then feed on. However, I'm not adding a fish because of my weird pH levels, so I'm falsely adding ammonia via fish food. This will decompose and it'll make sure that the bottled bacteria doesn't starve and go to waste. At least that's the plan. I'm really happy with the addition of my new plant. Although it's not that different in texture to that microsorium, the leaves are both long, thin and narrow, it does make things a little bit more visually interesting. That Salvinia's doing nicely too. So now it's a waiting game. I'll be testing the water to see if the pH is raising at all, and I'll also be checking that everything else is staying as it should be. And not to mention keeping my fingers crossed for the fate of the lily. If you would like to know what happens too, then do hit the subscribe button and turn on the notifications. Once this tank has a fish in it, I'll be making a short video every day so that you can see the progress of the tank in real time, but until then it's a video every time I have something new to report. The Daily Tank, the home of the Daily Tank video.